You are now watching Zaclesage PTCG. Let's get it! Yo, what's poppin' Pokemon fans? Welcome back to Zaclesage PTCG. I'm Zaclesage. Today we're going to be covering my top 5 best budget decks in format. So I recently covered my top 10 most competitive decks in format. Now don't get me wrong, all these decks can hold their own in a tournament. I've constructed them or found lists that have been extremely viable. Shout out to Logan McKay for helping me out with a lot of these deck choices. Really great friend, really great asset in the Pokemon community. So, one thing that I do want to note about this video, I have made these decks more budget than I have in the past. I've had a lot of questions, comments, responses, being like, why is Rosa so much? Why is Rosa featured in all your decks? Things like that. So I've omitted a lot of decks that would have a lot more expensive cards. There are still some decks with Dedenne and Crobat, but with recent promo cards and trainer toolkits coming out, those cards should be a little bit cheaper to acquire. If you want to make it a little bit cheaper, go to PTCGO plug in code ZLESAGE5 to save 5% on your next order for any of the cards, and all the decks are featured below in the description. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button too to support the content. Alright, let's jump into it. Starting off with the first deck here, we have Charizard, and I mean, this is a deck that a lot of people have requested for me to cover on the channel, and I figured that this is a great place to kind of put it. Charizard came out in Vivid Voltage, and I mean, Charizard's a fan favorite card, fan favorite Pokemon that is. You can use its Royal Blaze to do 100 damage, and do additional damage for each Leon that you have in your discard pile. So really taking your roots from the Galar region within the Sword and Shield video games. So this deck really pops off by using Jirachi to acquire cards like Leon, discard them, get those rare candies, and then really attack with Royal Blaze. Just doing a lot of damage for a single prize card Pokemon. Now that's usually a theme when it comes to appropriate budget decks that are very good. It's single prize card Pokemon that tend to be quite powerful what their attack cost is. I do like a lot of the setup potential that Battle Sense offers to the deck, looking at the top 3 cards, put one in the hand and discard the other cards. That's why the deck's a little bit heavy on the ordinary rods here. You can get cards back with Mewtwo using Scoop Up Net. The Jirachi Scoop Up Net combo seems to work, and if one of your Pokemon gets knocked out, you can use Oricorio-GX to get it back. Overall, most of the cards in this deck should be pretty simple to acquire, with the only exception being that there's a Dedenne-GX and an Oricorio-GX. Both of those should only cost a few packs, so maybe just trade around for some of your extras for a few packs to be able to complete this deck. This would be a great way to learn Pokemon. This is a great way to kind of experiment with the metagame. And kind of, I mean, this deck can be quite powerful, so give it a try. I think it's really fun to try this. I might be surprising a lot of y'all with my number 4 inclusion on this list, but with the recent reprint of Lapras VMAX and Lapras V as shiny editions in Shining Fates, both of those cards aren't going for a lot of packs right now. They're only going for about 1 Shining Fates pack each at the time of the recording of this video. That means that their normal Sword and Shield versions are very, very, very easy to acquire right now. So once you get past the Lapras VMAX, which is not a lot, the Frostmoth also got reprinted as shiny versions, as normal versions, as a promo version, as Sword and Shield. Like, this card has been printed a bunch. The only things that you need to really worry about are Crobat, which is recently printed as a promo, Dedenne-GX, which comes out in the trainer toolkit, Eldegoss, which is only worth a couple packs, and Keldeo-GX, which is only worth a couple packs. Everything else in this deck is very easy to acquire, so this deck has become a budget deck. So if you're rocking a budget, you could pull up with a VMAX deck and have quite a good chance. This deck's well positioned against Centiskorch and a few other top decks in the formats. How does this deck work? Well, you're basically trying to use Lapras VMAX's GMAX pump to do 90 plus 30 for each water energy attached to this Pokemon. You can use Frostmoth's Ice Dance to attach as many water energy as you want to one of your bench Pokemon. So between the power of Air Balloon and Switch, you can kind of just pop off with a bunch of energies on a Lapras VMAX and do a lot of damage. I think including a VMAX kind of deck on this list makes it unique, because not a lot of people are going to look at a deck and be like, Lapras VMAX is a budget deck. You can definitely pop up with Lapras VMAX deck. This deck, I'm assuming you could build online for under $10. That's the way that it looks like to me, so just picking up a very short amount of codes, and you should be able to play this deck immediately and have a chance against Centiskorch VMAX, which is one of the best decks in format. I mean, Lapras VMAX can also do well against ADP. There's a lot of decks that this deck just does well against. So I mean, I think this is one of the better decks that you could play in the formats, especially if you're balling on a budget. There's probably not too many changes here. And I mean, if you don't have the Lapras VMAXs, you can maybe go for like an Inteleon VMAX approach. Very similar concepts of decks. Same thing with Galarian Darmanitan VMAX. Basically, if you insert any of the water type VMAXs, they're going cheap right now. Pick them up while they're cheap, and then hopefully they become a little bit better after we rotate to Sword and Shield on, likely in the summer. After a bit of a debate, I wasn't entirely sure where to put as the number 3 deck. Logan McKay, you can follow him on Twitter as Logan McKay, helped me out with Excadrill, basically telling me that this deck, with all the decks that have answers to Altaria, basically cutting the Altaria line down, beefing up the Cinccino line so you can draw cards with Make Do, this deck seems very good. How does this deck work? Well, it takes the idea that Excadrill is fighting type, and that you should have an answer to Pikarom, Eternatus, other single prize card attackers. And I mean, this deck is pretty cheap to acquire, especially since there are 2 versions of the Excadrill. Cinccino just got reprinted again in Shining Fates, so everything seems like it's going to be shifting down a little bit price-wise. This deck works by using 11th Hour Tackle if you have less than 3 cards in your deck, or Drill Bazooka to do 120 damage. You're pitching away a lot of cards, but that's why this deck plays a lot of copies of Ordinary Rod and Palpad. So for a single energy, you could be knocking things out, especially with the help of Martial Arts Dojo. Use Cinccino to acquire other cards out of your deck, getting closer to that large 11th Hour Tackle, and you can use Fion to avoid decking out along with Ordinary Rod and Palpad. Happy is also going to help you get there. And I mean, you got plenty of cards along the way. Mimikyu is going to help you out against your Mewtwo GX matchup. Oricorio is going to allow you to draw some cards. And I mean, with only 1 copy of Dedenne and 1 copy of Oricorio-GX, this deck again is going to be extremely easy to pick up for most players. And again, if it's a little bit more difficult for you, I totally understand. Everyone is in a different financial situation. I assume that this deck is, based off of what I understand of PTCGO, that this deck is probably under $20 to put together from beginning to end. And that's if you're to pick up some codes and just trade smart. If you're ever looking for extra codes, go to play in events. You can trade around some of your extra cards. Maybe you could even go to one of the streamers that shows their codes on stream. There's a lot of ways to get codes for free nowadays, or at least at a cheaper price. And as always, you can always support the channel by using code ZLASAGE5 at PTCGO store. But this deck should just be well positioned because Pikarom and Eternatus are both strong in our format. They're both weak to fighting type Pokemon. And I mean, there's also a lot of decks that just can't handle to a single prize card Pokemon that's hitting 120 over and over again. So that's why this deck hit its number 3 spot. I think it's quite powerful. I haven't really messed around with it too much, but I have seen this deck's power, and it did cost me a couple of my losses in the Players' Cup 3 qualification period. Coming in hot with our almost first place deck, the second place, first place deck, I guess second place that is Mad Party. So this deck did reach the top 10 list of playable decks in my top 10 video that I recently posted. Check that out if you get a chance. Mad Party works similar to Lost March, Night March of the yesteryears, by having an attack where you do damage for all the Pokemon that have that attack in your discard pile. This case, it's Mad Party. There's 4 Mad Party Pokemon: Poltegeist, Galarian Mr. Rime, Dedenne, and Bunnelby. You can only really attack with Bunnelby and the Poltegeist in this deck because they are the only attackers that cost 2 energies. So we can use triple acceleration and twin energies to cover their attack cost. You want to use everything in your power to get Mad Party Pokemon in your discard pile, within reason to get knockouts on your opponent's Pokemon. This deck boasts a strong matchup against most tag team Pokemon, most VMAX Pokemon, can hold its own against single prize card Pokemon, and it's decently well positioned in the metagame. The most expensive cards in this deck are going to be the Crobat and 3 copies of the Dedenne-GX. However, like I've said a few times in this video, the Trainer Toolkit has really brought down the price of the Dedenne-GX, along with Crobat V getting recently printed as a promo, does definitely make this kind of in the budget range. Sure, it might be a little bit more of the pricier on the budget range, and that's probably why it's doing a little bit better, because cards like the Dedenne-GX and Crobat V really make decks work. And if anything, it's going to help you start building your collection towards building more and more competitively viable decks. But this deck has seen day 2s at online regional championships. This deck has seen a lot of success, so I totally recommend playing it. There's a lot of cool things going on in this deck. You can use Giovanni's Exile, discard those Crobats and Dedenne-GX on your bench. You can use Electromagnetic Radar, Quick Ball, T-Break, Professor's Research to discard Pokemon to get more damage with Mad Party. I mean, I really like how this deck flows. It's super fun to play. Honestly, gives me some of the most joy when I'm playing Pokemon. So again, really one of the more competitive budget decks that we have available in our format. If you haven't already given it a try, see what the cards are technically going for. All the cards just got reprinted as promos. So if you've been buying some Shining Fates, you can maybe pick up some Mad Party promo Pokemon. Maybe those are even cheaper to build the deck. But there's so many different arts for these cards now at this point that it should be fairly cheap for you to pick up. Again, I think this deck's probably going to be in the $20 to $30 range, and a lot of these cards you'd use in a lot of other decks. So once you start building a couple decks, you'll see that Quick Ball, Professor's Research, and Boss's Orders are all going to be very similar amounts in decks. Once you have those cards to the 4 of, you don't need to trade them in between, like they're automatically going in between each deck. So once you have these cards, each deck that you want to build after that is going to be a little bit cheaper. Alright peeps, we made it to our number 1 spot, and this is Cracephalon, a Blacephalon Welder Toolbox, Tempozard, Welder and Friends, whatever you want to call this deck. I'm going to call it Cracephalon because Andrew Hedrick and his testing group, that's what they called it. But this deck focuses on using a variety of Pokemon that can get powered up with the Welder card, which attaches 2 fire energies from your hand to one of your Pokemon to draw 3 cards. You can power up those Pokemon very quickly with efficient attacks to use in a variety of situations. You got Double Blaze GX with Reshiram and Charizard, Fireball Circus that you could discard a bunch of fire energies from your hand to get knockouts with Blacephalon, or you could snipe wherever you want with Spit Shot Cramorant V. Now, you might be looking at this deck and being like, yo, Zach, I see a lot of GX Pokemon. There's a handful of V Pokemon. How in the world is this a budget deck? Well, I'll go through it one by one. Cramorant V just got reprinted in Shining Fates, and it's already coming out in a tin as part of the promotion for Shining Fates, and it was already released in Sword and Shield. So the card should be very efficient to pick up, only a couple packs each, if that. Crobat V just is getting printed as a promo in a tin, or a promo box, depending on where you are. So it should go down a lot. Galarian Zigzagoon is a common card. Blacephalon is a rare card, so I mean, it's again probably going for 1 or 2 packs each. Reshiram Charizard-GX did come out in a promo tin. It also had its own League Battle deck, and they're overly not that expensive online, so that's going to be a couple packs each. Dedenne-GX came out in the Trainer Toolkit kit, couple packs each. Jirachi has been featured in multiple League Battle decks and things like that. So Jirachi has gone down a lot in price. Mewtwo is fairly easy to acquire. It also came out as a promo, and Oricorio-GX is only worth a couple packs each. Most trainers, supporters, stadiums, and energies are all very easy to acquire on PTCGO. So again, this is the most expensive budget deck that we featured in this video. Probably around $30-ish range to build this deck online. If you're to buy some codes from PTCGO store or something like that, you might be able to pick it up even a little bit cheaper. That's just a kind of guesstimate off the top of my head, but this deck is incredibly powerful, and it actually won the last GG Tour Chill TCG Regional Championships online. So this deck is absolutely a winning deck. So if you're able to, I would start acquiring these cards. Now, the one cool thing that I think about this deck, if you are building it, is let's say if you can only get 1 Reshiram Charizard-GX, but you have a copy of Double V, or you have a copy of Talonflame V, maybe a Heatran-GX, maybe something like that, you could cut one of the Reshiram and Charizard-GX while you eventually trade for the other one. Same thing with Cramorant, you could add in one of those cards, because anything that gets powered up with Welder can technically fit into this deck. So while I don't necessarily recommend changing from the norm of this list, I think this deck is one of those better decks to build as you go. So you could start playing it a little bit sooner, even if you can't afford all the cards, or if you can't trade for all the cards in one particular session. So this is the number 1 deck. Again, I think I featured this deck for the past few videos. So hopefully you kind of get the point, kind of test this deck out. And if you're looking for something a little bit more competitive, we do have the top 10 competitive decks for March 2021 that I recently put out there. So check that out as well if you're looking for a little bit more competitive. But this video is more or less for people who are balling on a budget. Totally been there, totally done that. Trading cards that I bought packs with my allowance and stuff just to take the bus to go to other tournaments. I mean, I totally been there, man. So we'll yeah, that's what we got going on for Cracephalon. And that's what we got going on for this video today. Hopefully you enjoyed these top 5 best budget decks. I mean, all of these decks have some competitive viability, ranging from being kind of tier 2.5 to tier 1-ish decks. So definitely be sure to check that out. Again, if you're looking for a new deck or a new concept, or you're balling on a budget, or maybe you just want to have some fun, you're just learning, starting off Pokemon, this would be a great way to start off if you're a beginner with any of these decks without investing too much on some of these other decks that feature a lot more expensive cards online. So hopefully you all enjoyed this video. All the lists are in the description below. Go to PTCGO store, use code ZLASAGE5, subscribe to the channel, you know all the good stuff. I say this almost like 5-10 million times a video, but I appreciate all the support from everyone. Thank you so much. I gotta get started on another video right now, so I'll catch up with all y'all later, but thank you so much for watching. Have yourself a great one. So much for watching and supporting the channel. If you haven't already, it'd mean the world to me if you could subscribe to help support me as a content creator. Thanks again, and have yourself a great one.